I want to talk to you about living older, healthier, happier. And when cities or communities of any size, over the last 3 years, we went through COVID-19. And when COVID-19 came, people said, oh, everything changed. I think that more than everything changed, our perception changed. It was as if we had gotten some magnifying glasses to look at the cities, and the invisible became visible. Now we saw homeless on the streets, on the parking lots, even with 90% of the hotel rooms empty. But on the positive side, we had been told that the quality of air in many cities was bad, almost everywhere. And when we told people to stay home for a few days with fewer cars, it was like magic. The air became clean. All over, in every continent, in every city, some a little bit more, some a little bit less. So we need to decide, how do we want to live? Because cities, this is Milan, Italy, all of a sudden few people stay at home and the air became clean. So it's clearly, we've seen what is possible. Are we going to go back to 2019 when people were dying? Over 600,000 children every year. Over 4 million have their lungs impacted for life. Or are we going to go to a better future? But also a horrible situation showed us opportunities. When we told people go to the park but be physically distanced, we saw there were not enough parks. So the streets, which are 25, 30% of our cities, were open for people to walk or bike, whether it was Auckland, New Zealand, or Oakland, California, with their turn 72 miles. All of the neighborhood streets became 10-mile-an-hour streets and slow streets. And with fewer cars, people started doing protected bike lanes everywhere. Before, it used to take 10, 15, 20 years to do bike lanes because it was too expensive or too complicated, or, well, everywhere they started doing it, not in 10 or 20 years, but in 10 or 20 days. And also creating bus-only lanes and places, the markets on the streets, and even turning public golf courses. Public golf courses for 200 people in 24 hours became a public park for thousands and thousands of people. So in many ways, the impossible became possible. And many people were happy about the possibilities and the opportunity. If we could jump over COVID-19 and go towards a better future and change the way of doing things. How do you want Charlotte to become? That is the key element. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. Now I live in Toronto, but before I lived in Bogota. And I went to school. Actually, my first 2 years of university were at UNC, Chapel Hill. And I have a master's from UCLA, an MBA, and a PhD from university in Sweden. But I've been always involved with people and cities. When I was in Bogota before immigrating, I led the construction of over 200 parks and also turned a ciclovia project. Let me tell you about it. 200 parks from design to construction. Small ones, big ones, everywhere. This was one. The Pope came here, gave a mass for 1 million people, then he left and nothing happened in 27 years. Why? Because change is hard. In Charlotte, in Bogota, in New York, in Copenhagen, everywhere. Because you try to change and the cave people show up. The cave people, you know them, they are the citizens against virtually everything. But like Southminster, you find how to get things done. So it went from this to a magnificent park that is used for people of all ages and all abilities, especially programs in the activities, people in wheelchairs, people with walkers, grandparents and grandchildren, 3, 4 generations using it at the same time, which is one of the magic of the parks and public places now, as we are living longer. And after I was mayor, one of my brothers became mayor and he built a magnificent library on this same park. And it was also how to use the public space for everyone. And also I took a small program of ciclovia, which in the US we call it open streets, and turned it into the world's largest pop-up park. How is it? You open streets to people, you close them to cars, and the magic happens. People of all ages come out. I went from a few miles to 75 miles every Sunday of the year. Every Sunday of the year. Streets that are full with cars from Monday to Saturday. Then on Sundays, then a network of those become for people to walk, to bike, to run, to skate, to shop, to socialize, to enjoy the presence of each other. That's more than anything what happens. And it's really good because everybody, young and old, or rich or poor or fat or skinny, anybody can come. 1 out of 4 people come out every Sunday. It changes our minds. It reminds us that the streets are public spaces. And it happens in big and small cities. I've seen it work in cities of 100,000, in cities of 10 million. Everywhere is about social integration. This is Mexico City. This is New Delhi. This is Paris. You know, and this is Charlotte. Yes, I went to Charlotte and we trained people in the city. And then in around 2010, and then I went back in 2013 or 14 when Tracy invited me. And this is Charlotte. But it's not only a few Sundays per year. It could continue. Maybe you could do it every Sunday, maybe from May to September or October. It's really magnificent. But now I live in Canada. I've been living in Canada for the last 24 years, and I've been lucky to have worked in over 350 cities in every continent. And I have a webinar every other week on cities for everyone. And I have also developed some master classes. One of them is on living older, healthier, happier. And I also ran for mayor of Toronto last year because I thought the city was moving in the wrong direction. And it was very different, very environmentally. I asked people not to put plastic signs that were polluting, and people did their own signs. And it was interesting. In the 100 days from the day that I registered till the day of election, I had 100,000 votes. 100,000 votes. Even dogs were participating. But I'm the founder and chair of 880 Cities, and 880 Cities, what is it? 880 Cities is not about parks or streets or walking or cycling. Those are the means, not the end. The end is how can we help create successful cities? Look at these older people dancing in Warsaw, and the organizer, Vika, an older person. Yeah, so this is about 880 cities, healthy communities. And everywhere I go, people say, oh, but can my grandparents ride their bike to go to the park or get eggs or milk? Can they walk with the children to the school or to take public transit? Look, simple, 80 rule of common sense, but common sense is the least common of the senses. Step number 1, think of a child, your grandson, your granddaughter, someone around 8 years old. And once you have someone around 8 years old that you love, step number 2, think of someone around 80 that you also love, your parents, your brothers, your sisters, your uncles, anybody that you love. And once you have the child and the older adult, step number 3, would you send them walking across the intersection? Would you send them riding their bike to go to the park? Would they feel safe? If you would, it's because he's safe enough. If you would not, it's because he's not. I mean, what if everything that you did in Charlotte, everything, the sidewalk, the crosswalk, the library, the park, the restaurant, the school, everything had to be great for an 8 and an 80, not 8 to 80. 8 and 80 as an indicator species. Because if it's good for the 8 and it's good for the 80, it's going to be good for everybody from 0 to over 100. We need to stop building cities as if everybody was 30-year-old and athletic, and build cities for all. That is the concept of 880 cities, communities for all. Let me take you through 5 actions of well-being. What is well-being? Well, it's being well. So let me take you, because that's a lot of the work that you do is about that. And the World Health Organization created the age-friendly cities with 8 indicators. And in the US, AARP took it over, and they are promoting every place. But let me take you, because I think around well-being, well, a Tibetan proverb says the secret to living well and longer is eat half, walk double, laugh triple, and love without measure. Yeah, that probably works. But also, look, there are no secrets. There are no secrets. I'm taking you to 5 actions. First, we need to eat healthier, more plant-based. So we got to do farmers market. This is something that Southminster could promote all over the city. And also urban gardening in the schools, in the libraries, everywhere. I'm not asking you to be vegetarian, but if every one of us eat half as much meat, the impact is the same as if half of us had become vegetarian. Number 2, we need to sleep 7 to 9 hours. Some people say erroneously that older people need fewer hours. No, everybody. When older people sleep 4 or 5 hours, the next day they don't remember anything. we lose very little memory, except if we don't sleep. So we need to sleep 7 to 9 hours. If you are 20 or 40 or 60 or 80 or 100, 7 to 9 hours. The sleep is kind of magical to reinforce. When we lose 1 hour, we lose 20% of our performance. And even drowsy driving kills more people than people in alcohol or drugs. So we really need to work on sleeping 7 to 9 hours. Also, sleep is democratic, it's powerful, it's free. 3, we need to socialize on the sidewalks, in the parks, everywhere. Socializing is absolutely critical, because when we socialize, it increases our brain health, our mental, emotional health, our quality of life. It decreases the blood pressure, the risk of Alzheimer's. And it's not about the games on the screen, it's about doing knitting in the park, walking in the park, walking groups, knitting groups, programs, and talking about nature. We now gotta have contact with nature, whether we're doing Tai Chi or yoga. When I was working in Hawaii or when I was in Austria or anywhere, we need to have contact with nature, and we need to be physically active everywhere. Since the day we're born till the day we die, we need to be physically active everywhere. This is really critical, very, very important. This is almost like the magic pill. If we're physically active, it decreases the premature death, the strokes, many cancers, osteoporosis, overweight, type 2 diabetes. There are many studies that show the benefits. There is an urgency to be physically active. And it's not about marathons. It's only 30 minutes a day for older adults, 30 minutes, but it has to be 5 days or more. 5 days or more. So keep in mind, no magic pill. Even though everybody, no magic pill. The only way that Charlotte is going to be physically active, the only way is if people walk or bike or play as a normal part of everyday life. This is what Southminster could be focusing on. And obviously, sustainable mobility and parks improve our physical health. But there is no health if we don't have mental health. So loneliness decreases. Loneliness is bad for so many things. It increases by almost 30% the heart disease, the strokes, twice the possibility of dementia. So the Surgeon General of the US just came out with the impacts on loneliness. Depression is the leading cause of disability. When we have contact with nature, it's going to improve our mood, our cognitive attention. When I was working in Puerto Rico, looking at these bike lanes with full of trees, or working in Alaska, any place, anywhere, we need nature. We need nature at home. We need nature in the sidewalks. We need nature inside the home, inside the Southminster's homes. We gotta have nature in the neighborhoods. So when we go shopping, there are trees, there is green. All of this is gonna be good, not only because it looks beautiful, but in addition of looking beautiful, it's because it's good for mental health. In the nature, everywhere. Those are the 5 actions: eat more plant-based, sleep 7 to 9 hours, contact with nature, socialize, and physical activity. And yes, we're living longer. Much, much longer. You know, the new 60, the people that have ever lived to 60 in the history of humanity, half are alive today. And people are happy. They are there doing gardening and having ice cream on the streets and playing with their grandchildren in the parks. And also is good for the economy. In the US, the people over 60, if it was an independent country, it would be the 3rd largest economy in the world. And the population over 60 is going to double. The population over 80 is going to quadruple. So what is the role of Southminster in all of this? Trying to have older people living healthier and happier. What an important role, because older people are anxious to do all kinds of activities, paint, learn, go to universities, go to classes. In the US, the life expectancy has doubled in the last 150 years. We have learned how to survive. But when we have all of these issues of equity and climate change and public health crisis, we must learn how to live. So what is the role of Southminster? You have such a huge opportunity to be a role model for similar organizations all over the US and all over the world. Keep in mind, elders are givers, not takers. Elders are assets to our community. They are not liabilities. We need to change the conversation. and Southminster can help. Let me give you one example in regard to parks and others. People say, should we work in small parks or large ones? Well, we need both. We need the neighborhood parks because that is where we meet the people that live close to us, and we develop solidarity and friendship and socialize. Remember all of the benefits of socializing, but we might need to have medium-sized parks if we want to play tennis or do other types of activities or have events. And we're going to have big parks, citywide parks for other kinds of programs and other kinds of activities. And older adults in the parks, we need walking paths. The two main infrastructures is walking path and benches. By far, benches. But also we need restrooms for all year, game tables, drinking fountains, shade, creek, trees. That's the kind of infrastructure that we need for older people to be able to live older, healthier, happier. So where people can play, people of all ages. Some people want to go and just read. And, the benches are magnificent. People are solving the issues of the world, the young people, but also the old. What are the activities? Number one is walking. But also people want to gardening and knitting and tai chi and yoga and dancing and reading and bird watching or bocce. Group activities are the best. Group because of isolation. It's not just about walking. It's not just doing the walking path, but it's doing the walking group so that people will go out and be with others. This is really critical to try to have as many group activities as possible. So this is not just once a year. It's not events. It's not on the 4th of July that you do something spectacular. No, it's programs, daily programs, weekly programs. Not events that are once a year, whether it is yoga or it is knitting or is whatever, but programs is what really improves our mental and physical health. Allotment gardens, or any kind of things. Also volunteering with friends in the park. It could be amazing, taking care of a small area in one of the homes, the garden areas of Southminster, or a small neighborhood park. When I was working in Arizona, I saw this desert botanical garden, magnificent. It's so nice that people go there to ask if they want to get married, and then actually they do get married in the same botanical garden. But also it's a place where there are over 400 volunteers, over 55 years old, all of them over 55. It gives them a purpose, a sense of belonging. And when I was in Southminster, you were almost finishing this. Here I was with Tracy McGinnis, and she was showing me beautiful places, half for children, half for adults, and especially I love the walking path. I showed this photo all over the world. In hundreds of cities I've shown it because it's a great example of what could be done if you have. So I congratulate all of you because you did this, and now you are kept going. Tracy sent me photos of new projects that you're doing. Please keep doing them. And this multi-generational is fantastic because, like I tell my children, I said, the people that I love the most in the world are my children. Until the grandchildren arrive. They don't like that, but I love my grandchildren. Of course, I also. Why are you doing all of this? Why are you doing it? Because of the benefits. Because this that you are doing is you are allowing people to live older, healthier, happier. All that you are doing, all of these benefits is good for culture, for education, for recreation, for the environment, for transportation. So you need to develop alliances with the cities. There's not going to be a Martian coming down to say, oh, I'm going to make a great Charlotte where everyone lives older, healthier, and happier. It's about you becoming passionate advocates. What a wonderful session you're having now with the board, the leaders of Southminster. Becoming passionate advocates on all of this, having grit, having passion and perseverance. So be bold, be benchmark with some of the best, and do alliances in Charlotte with the university, with the government, with faith groups, and develop a shared vision of Southminster. But the shared vision is like the image of the puzzle. That's not enough. You gotta have action, action, action. But when you have, this is the shared vision, then it doesn't matter what piece of the puzzle you do, as long as it's pieces of the same puzzle. And then with shared vision and lots of action, you are going to transform communities, and you're going to be an example. So I wish you all the best. I hope that you continue, and I hope that you do it, and that you do it now. And I want to thank you for having invited me to share some of these ideas, because all of this is doable. None of this is technical, very little financial. It's mostly about policy. And all of you that have done so much work in others, and imagine the possibilities, not only to be leaders in North Carolina, but all across the US, and being an example to the world. So Tracy, thank you very much for inviting me, and I wish you a very successful meeting. Bye-bye.